the House voted again to make Washington, D.C. a state. So what would that look like? So there are a few things to consider here. The first and most obvious change that you would see would be on the map. The District of Columbia, this new state, would be renamed the Douglas Commonwealth. So that would keep the DC abbreviation while also paying homage to an amazing historical figure, Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass was an ex-slave who wrote a fantastic autobiography about his life experience. He was a civil rights activist and even actually an early feminist. He was one of the few men at the Seneca Falls Convention. He was just a historical badass. So, I'm in favor of the name. I'll say that. I'm comfortable saying that I am in favor of the name of this new state, if it were to become a thing. So in this new state's boundaries, all federal government buildings would be excluded. So the Capitol building, the White House, those would still be federal lands. That would not become part of the new state. Another major change would be the currently 700,000 residents that live in DC would have the power to send 2 senators to the Senate and 1 member to the House. So that would change the makeup of Congress. Also, the District of Columbia's mayor would become the Douglas Commonwealth governor. Wow. So now that we know what this would look like, let's answer why this is even something that people have brought up in the first place. Why do people want DC to become a state? Over the last few decades, there has been a major push to make Washington, D.C. a state. The residents there are majorly in favor of it, and there's a lot of different reasons why. There are 2 major reasons, and the first one is D.C. voters currently do not have full representation in Congress, even though they are taxed like the rest of us. It is true that they were granted the ability to send a representative to Congress, but this representative has no voting power. They can talk and be there, but they don't vote. Because of this, many DC statehood advocates run under the slogan of no taxation without representation, which obviously is the callback to the old Revolutionary War call. The other major thing is the federal government has the power to nullify all laws passed by the District of Columbia's government. This is something that is known as home rule, and the District of Columbia's website puts it perfectly. I'm just going to quote from the website. Under the home rule government, Congress reviews all legislation passed by the council before it can become law and retains authority over the district's budget. So that's another major hurdle for DC residents. Their voting body in their district does not have the same power that our voting body, like our, state house and state senate, have. It can be completely overridden by the federal government. With all that being said, this is not the first time that the House has voted on DC statehood. In 1993, it came to the House and it failed miserably, but last year it came to the House and it passed with flying colors. However, it did not see a vote in the Republican-controlled Senate, which then leads us to the opposition. Why are there those who oppose DC statehood? Once again, 2 major reasons. First one is this. It does quite clearly say in the Constitution that DC is meant to be governed in this home rule fashion that we mentioned earlier. In fact, even our founding father, James Madison, argued that the government needed control over the nation's capital to maintain policies that fit federal lawmakers' needs. Now, it would be unfair for us to not acknowledge the fact that much has changed since the days of the founding fathers. For example, the DC area now has 700,000 residents compared to the 3,000 that lived there when it became the District of Columbia. The other reason why there's a lot of Republican opposition, in particular in Congress, is because DC voters are reliably blue and would most likely send Democrats to Congress. So in that case, why would any Republican congressional member want to support this? So that's a simple breakdown of what's happening right now. So what to expect now that the House has passed this bill? Most likely it's just going to meet the same fate that the majority of our legislation does when it comes to a vote in the Senate. It will be filibustered by the opposition party. That's just kind of how the politics is going to play out. I've thought about it now, is there going to be some case in the future where we see DC statehood get passed? There's really only two ways that's going to happen. The first one is Democrats win a supermajority in the Senate and maintain their majority in the House so they can pass it through Congress. Or there's a compromise that is met. One thing that has been brought up by people before is, hey, rather than make the District of Columbia a state, why don't we just merge it with one of the neighboring states like Maryland? On paper, this idea actually sounds fantastic, but then obviously you have to consider the fact that DC residents are probably not going to be the biggest fans of that idea. I mean, I put myself in their shoes. If you came up to me and were like, hey man, just for the sake of simplicity, we're going to make Arizona part of California. It'll be called Calizona. No offense to Californians, but I just wouldn't want to do that. As an Arizonan, I would like to keep the fact that I am an Arizonan. I don't see myself as a Californian. So yeah, that's basically the breakdown there. So it's an incredibly cool concept. We'd also have to add one extra star to our beautiful flag here. So yeah, we'll see what happens in the future, but at least that gets you some visual of it. I hope this video was informative.